Good morning, my dear viewers. This is Dr. Bhatt Kiritam, Assistant Professor of History, working at Government Degree College, Hyderabad. Today, our lecture is on Vedic civilization, Vedic culture. That means Vedic culture consists of early Vedic and later Vedic. The cultural tenets that we are following in our society, almost all cultural society, almost all religious tenets that we are following our present society all took roots during this age. And our caste system that is linked with that of religion based on the theory of karma, based on the theory of dogma. So let us see how the cultural tenets we are following encroached very deeply during the Vedic Age. Archaeologists place the Vedic civilization between 1500 BC and 600 BC. The Aryans migrated from steppes in Central Asia. The advent of Aryans opened a new chapter in the history of ancient India, for it marked the end of the pre- and proto-historic periods and the beginning of the historic period. The voluminous literature produced during this period gives us valuable information regarding the polity, society, economy, and religious setup of the Aryans in the early and later Vedic phases. The Aryans migrated from steppes based on archaeological survey evidences, and these corroborated with that of the inscriptions such as the Mitanni and Cassette of Bogaskaya in Central Asia. And also, Indology also supports the archaeological evidences. Indology means a study of language, the study of a word. The geographical extent, early Vedic Age. Early Vedic Age, otherwise known as Rig Vedic Age. The Aryans during the early Vedic period, between 1500 BC and 1000 BC, settled in the Saptasaindava region that corresponds to areas such as Afghanistan, Punjab, and western fringes of the Uttar Pradesh. The Rigvedic Aryans knew the existence of river Saraswati and Sindh and its tributaries. The Aryans of the Rigvedic age were not yet aware of the great oceans. The word Samudra refers to the referred in the Rig Veda probably to denote a collection of water. The Aryans of this period were a semi-nomadic pastoralists and later Vedic age. The period of later Vedic age confined between 1000 BC and 600 BC. During this age, the Aryans moved towards the Gangetic Basin and Deccan and South India, which was corroborated and substantiated by later Vedic literature and archaeological evidences. It was said that Saint Augustine Aryanized South India. And during this, the formation of the monarchical states took shape, and according to Aitareya Brahmana, the whole country was divided into five parts. And during the period, Aryans invented metal, iron metal, with the help of which they could cut up the dense forest and brought the fields under cultivation. This is the period of a painted grave pottery that was associated with the iron implements. Then Vedic polity, early Vedic. In the early Vedic age, chief of tribe called as Raja. This kingship was hereditary in nature. During this age, there were principal assemblies such as Sabha, Samiti, Vidata, and Gana. Sabha was most probably council of elders, and the Samiti was the general assembly consists of the entire tribe. It was said that Sabha and Samiti controlled and checked the powers of king. Women were also allowed to attend the Sabha and Vidata, which shows that women played a very active role in the politics of the early Vedic period. The protection of the people was a sacred duty of the Rajan, and in turn he got offerings in the form of money from the people. Bali means a voluntary gift from the people to king. The land was owned by the tribe as a whole, and afterwards family ownership or joint ownership came into existence. The king was assisted by Purohita, a Senapati, and Rajapati. Purohita. Purohita who accompanied Rajan to battle and helped him with the prayers and spells in order to get victory over his adversaries. And Senapati, he will lead the tribal force in times of war. Rajapati, he was in charge of pastures. A wars fought for cows but not territory, and military functions were performed by the tribal groups such as Rata, Akana, and Grama. Later Vedic period. The later Vedic period saw the revolutionary changes in the Vedic polity due to the invention of iron, with the help of which the iron implements could made and could cut the dense forest, brought the fields under the cultivation, and ultimately could reach the surplus in agriculture. With the iron, they could make offensive and defensive weapons and could defeat their adversaries easily. Thus, the later Vedic period is solid background for the emergence of the famous 16 Mahajanapadas of 6th century BC. This is not only the age of 16 Mahajanapadas, it was also not only the age of Buddha, but also age of intellectual ferment, which we discussed in our earlier class. During this period, the tribal Rajan became very powerful and a strong king or kingship, as is evident from the Satapada Brahmana and the Taittiriya Samhita, the concept of a divinity attached to the king. The kingship became more monarchical and hereditary. During this period, agriculture surplus and material boom, new offices came into existence in the name of the Bhagaduga and the Sanghahitri. Bhagaduga was a revenue collector and the Sanghahitri was a treasurer. During this period, Maitreya Samhita states that women were not allowed to attend popular assemblies. But whereas during the early Vedic age, women were allowed in the assemblies and had discourses at par with the men, but when they came to the later Vedic age, they were not allowed into the famous assemblies. That means their status started deteriorating. A deteriorating of their status started during the later Vedic age. As the royal power increased, the Sabha and Samiti began to be dominated by king. Thus, the tribal assemblies lost their importance. As in the case of early Vedic age, king could not maintain standing army and he could muster forces of tribal units. Then, economic life. During early periods, Aryans were the semi-nomadic and pastoralists. But after the invention of iron, they made agricultural implements with the help of which they could cut off dense forests and brought fertile soil under the cultivation. They produced agriculture and they grown crops such as rice, wheat, barley, and cereals, and made cereals such as red gram, green gram, and black grams, and produced millets. Ultimately, there was attainment of surplus production. Emergence of arts and crafts such as carpentry, spinning, and weaving of cloths, and plaiting mats with the help of grass and reeds, and charring of leather, house building, and pottery are some of the crafts of this period. The craft of weaving was practiced by only women. The metals such as gold, copper, bronze, silver were used by early Vedic Aryans. Apart from the utilization of the metals, the later Vedic Aryans invented iron. And Nishka, Ayas metals were used in Rigveda and later Vedic times. The Vajeshnaya, Maitrayani, Taitrayani, and Katha Samhita and Shatapada Brahmana refers to 6, 8, 12, and 24 oxen were used to draw a drag plowshare in fertile lands. Even Shatapada Brahmana refers to flowing festivals. Early Vedic people followed a barter system, and later and also early Vedic people followed barter system in trade and transactions. A basic unit of exchange was cow during early Vedic age, but during the later Vedic age, metals such as Krishnala, Satamana, and Niska used in exchange. There were emergence of metals and craftsmen during later Vedic, such as a goldsmith, ironsmith, blacksmith, and bronzesmith. And social structure. It's mentioned in the Purusha Sukta of 10th Mandala of Rigveda that out of forehead and mouth of Prajapati, the creator, born the Brahmana, and similarly Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra are born out of our shoulders, thighs, and feet, respectively. Purohita, Purohita teaching and Paurahitya, whereas Kshatriya being a vailer has to fight against adversaries and to protect own subjects, and Vaishyas being emerged in agriculture, being engaged in agriculture and trade and transactions, how to pay the taxes, with the help of which the king or monarch would to maintain sound administration. Sudras, being the least community, how to serve the Dvijas or higher three varnas without expecting even a pie. A patriarchal society it was that dominated by males. A basic unit in the society was Kula, and head of the Kula was Kulapati or Grahapati. Girls were permitted Upanayana ceremony and got married after puberty only between the age group of 16 and 18 during the early Vedic age, whereas girls and girls married after puberty, before puberty, that was transmitted, that tantamount to chain marriage during the late Vedic age. During the early Vedic age, the girl was married after puberty, but they entered into the later Vedic age, the girl was married before puberty, that tantamount to emergence of chaste marriages. And during the Rigvedic period, girl was permitted to choose a better of as per her wishes, to which was denied during the later Vedic age. Girl was allowed with the Upanayana ceremony, which was denied during the later Vedic age. Women were allowed entry into the prominent assemblies such as Sabha and Vedanta, which was not allowed into the same during the later Vedic age. That means position of women deteriorated during the later Vedic age. Some women involved intellectual activities, and Rigveda mentions Maitreya and Gargi as poetesses, which was restricted during the later Vedic Age. They composed hymns, mantras during the early Vedic Age, but they were channeled during the later Vedic Age. Emergence of ashramas. There are four in number: a brahmacharya, a gruhastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. An emergence of Chaturveda Purusharthas such as Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And, and endogamy, emergence of endogamy. Endogamy means a marriage within a caste. A marriage within a caste between bride and groom, a marriage within a caste. Exogamy means a marriage within a caste but outside Gotra. Marriage within a caste but outside Gotra. And Niyoga, moral leverage. Niyoga means when husband dies, the brother of the deceased should marry a widow till begetting a male issue. It was sanctified in the society of later Vedic Age. And there were emergence of 8 types of marriage: Brahma, Daiva, Prajapatya, and Arsa. A Brahma, a Daiva, Prajapatya, Arsa. These are Anuloma type of marriage, and which were approach only for Dvijas. These Anuloma marriages approach only for Dvijas such as Brahma, a Daiva, a Prajapatya, and Arsa. And there are non-approved marriages such as Gandharva, Rakshasa, Paichasa, and Asura Vivaha. These are non-approved, only meant for Advijas, that means Shudras. Only Anuloma marriages are approved, but not Pratiloma marriages. But there are incidents of Pratiloma marriage, but offsprings of these Pratiloma marriage accorded inferior status in the society, accorded inferior caste status in the society. At emergence of monogamy, polygamy, polyandry also we can see during the age of Vedic Age. And in everybody's life, in a man's life, one has to undergo 16 samskaras. After completion of brahmacharya, a man entered into grihastha. That means marriage between bride and groom. As soon after completion of marriage, with the mantras and tantras and slokas, this new couple will be sent inside. There is a slogan or mantra or tantra in accordance with the Dharma Shastras. Number 1. Now, out of 16 samskaranas, number 1. Garbhadana. Garbhadana. O Punyasri. Garbhamu dharinchu. Garbhamu dharinchu. Garbhadana. Samskarana 2. Pumshadana. Purushunni prasadinchu. And Srimanta after 5 months. And when a bride get progeny in the month of 5th or 6th, in accordance with the Dharma Shastras, celebrates Srimanta Samskara. Then, when the boy comes out temporal life out of the holy womb of a mother, that uh, there is a ceremony known as cutting of umbilical cord. It's a beautiful ceremony in accordance with the Dharmasastras. They will cut umbilical cord that attached between boy, newly born baby and mother. That cutting of the umbilical cord. Then, as per the Dharmasastras, 8th day or 9th day, to Namakarana. And after 5th month or 6th month, when a baby sprouted with the teeth, and also it indicates that a baby can go for solid food, not depend upon the lactation of a mother. Instead of mother feeding, a baby should go for the solid food, and as such observes Annaprasana. Then up to 1 year, getting tonsured in front of goddess or god or goddess in the name. Chudakarma. Getting tonsured is a Chudakarma. Then Upanaya ceremony. And for Brahmins and Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, they should have a Upanaya ceremony on the 9th year, and depends upon their caste. They has to undergo cotton, cotton, wool, and camp, and depend upon their caste. It is also Upanaya a ceremony. And once a boy, and during the early Vedic age, the girl also entrusted with Upanaya ceremony, but when a girl entered into a later Vedic age, she was not allowed. Her status had deteriorated at par with the male. As such, after during the later age, male only investitude with Upanayana ceremony. After Upanaya ceremony, that boy entered into the Brahmacharya. So the boy has to go to the Guru and study. So remaining samskaranas from 9th to 15th, up to we studied here up to Upanaya ceremony eight samskaranas, but from 9th samskarana to 15th samskarana, the boy who studies at Guru has to undergo a remaining samskaranas at the behest of a Guru. And the last samskaran is Antyasti. Antyasti, traveling to cemetery or graveyard. So, in our Hindu society, even the cultural tenets that we are following in our today's culture society took roots during the Vedic age. Deeply rooted, and the caste system linked with that of the religion based on the theory of karma. So, in spite of many social reformation and religious reformation, we are unable to uproot the social conditions or conditions in our present society that were uprooted during the Vedic age. Of course, some extent we are trying, but completely, because are deeply uprooted these cultural tenets during the Vedic age. Then religion, religion, religious conditions, early Vedic periods. A people of Rigveda followed polytheism or henotheism, that is, have faith in or belief in many gods. Polytheism or henotheism means have faith or belief in many gods. They also prayed or professed natural forces. The dominant gods were Indra, Agni, Varuna, Mitra, and Nasarjas. Each god offers with hymns, mantras, and etc. The Rigveda, the Rigvedicarians offered praise and sacrifices to get in return for Raja children and pursue animals, health, and wealth. The minor gods such as Mitra, Yama, Soma were also professed. Women goddesses such as Prithvi, Aditi, Bushes, Aranyani were also worshipped. And during the later Vedic age, the gods such as Indra, Agni, Varuna went into oblivion and there emerged Trimurti concepts such as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Brahma was the creator and Vishnu was the preserver, whereas Shiva was a destroyer. And later Aryans not only prayed to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, but also their patriarchs as goddesses such as Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Parvati, respectively. And during the later age, there emerged as incarnation, there emerged an incarnation. The 10 incarnations such as Maitreya, 10 incarnations such as Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Vamana, Narsimha, Parsurama, Rama, Krishna, Buddha, and Kali. We are in Kali age and Kali yet to come. The cultural tenets and the religious tenets that we are following in a present society are to concrete shape during the Vedic age. The Vedic age was divided into three segments such as early Vedic age, Early Vedic age, otherwise known as a Rig Vedic age, that confined to between 1500 BC and 1000 BC. Whereas later Vedic age consists of Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Adharma Veda, that consists of that the period consists of confined to 1000 BC and 600 BC. And the cultural tenets and the religious tenets that we are following in our present society all took concrete shape during the Vedic age. See you, my dear viewers, and let us meet in next class. Bye.